Hello, Evan and Lillian. We'll get going here in just a minute. I'm just waiting for Erik and Michael. There's Michael right there. So let me bring Michael in. Oh, there's Erik too. So let's see, Erik, I'm promoting you to panelist. And then Michael, same thing, I'm going to bring you on. Perfect. Hey, Erik.
Hello. Hey.
You ready?
Yeah. Let me share my screen because I'll be presenting.
Okay. Yeah, and then as soon as you're ready, I'll just turn my screen off and let you guys do your thing.
Cool. Hey, Michael, do you have anything you want to add to the announcements at the start?
Nope, I think that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, it's good.
All right, let's go.
Okay.
See how many people we get. I added those 5 questions for you. They might be a little too easy, but that's okay.
Yep, no, it's fine. I've been super busy today. So.
Did it work out to create your game?
What's that?
Did it
Oh,
work?
yeah, the Kahoot.
Okay.
Yeah, it worked out great. Although I hope I remember to cancel it before it charges me $240.
Yeah. I was so sad to see that because it's always been free.
Yeah. Maybe I was just doing it wrong. There's multiple pricing levels.
That could be. See, I would think they would make it free for teachers, but I don't know. It's hard to say. Maybe they just saw how many people were using it since COVID hit and they were like, hey, let's start charging.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, that's probably true. Such a good tool, honestly. Very easy to use, fun to build, fun to play.
Yeah.
I just loved it.
Yeah, good. I'm glad you did.
Oh, we got some participants. Sweet.
Yay.
There are 10 people so far. We'll give them like, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah, I was just looking at the schedule, and it has 6 to 6:15 as intro. And I don't know why 6:15 to 6:30 is unaccounted for.
I feel like it's kind of always been that way.
Yeah, it's a little weird.
I feel like 6 to 6:15 is pizza.
Yeah.
Are people able to
be.
Let's see. I should open the chat in case there's something.
I hope everybody likes the pizza.
Virtual pizza. You know, they're doing that now. We're actually doing that at our yet to be announced NGConf event happening in November. We're going to do this really cool lunch presentation. So we'll provide everybody with a list of ingredients, and then we're going to hire a professional chef to come in and do this presentation, and he or she will teach everyone how to make this high-end meal. So I think it'll be really fun, and everybody will just be at their own home and making their own, their own version of it. But I think it sounds really cool.
Yeah, that's cool. Genius.
Yeah.
I wish I could make my own pizza from scratch, make the dough and stuff like that.
Yeah, wouldn't that be cool? And then everybody's flipping it around.
That would be so fun, and involve the kids in that too.
Oh, true. True. You could do a kids version where they make just a candy pizza or something. I don't know, a candy sushi. I saw.
Have you met my kids?
Yeah. Oh, so cool.
Are you saying they don't need any more candy?
They don't need to help me make pizza.
Oh. Oh, actually, I knew somebody would ask about the pizza, so I did bring the pizza.
Oh, nice. It's upside down.
Wait, it's upside down.
Yeah. I've never heard of that. Is that a local pizza company?
Yeah, it's like a local Utah pizza company, I think.
What area do you live in?
I live in Salt Lake County, but it's also in Utah County.
Is it? Okay. Wow. I've never seen that one.
Yeah, they have some good flavors. I don't know. probably not as good as what Steven Nielsen makes at home for his kids.
Have you tried that? What is it? The mod pizza? Have you seen
I
that?
haven't tried that yet. I've seen it.
Yeah.
Is it good?
I have no idea. I just drive by it all the time, and I'm always like, I wonder, like, especially because they have a drive-through, and I've always thought that seemed interesting because pizza doesn't seem like you could make it that fast and have it be good, but I could be totally wrong.
Yeah, that's well. I've been through Little Caesars, and they just have like pizzas ready all the time. so,
Okay. Yeah.
so maybe it's like that, but better. I don't know.
Could be.
I'm not. I like Little Caesars. It's really cheap, so
Yeah.
it's great for kids.
Yeah.
I'm always telling my wife, don't buy like the good stuff for the kids. Save the good stuff for me.
Oh, that's funny. You get it all to yourself. Steven says, do the thin crust, and that'll cook faster.
Oh, that's secrets.
Yeah.
Culinary secrets right here at the meetup for Angular.
I was just having a conversation. I don't normally talk about pizza, but I did last night with some friends as well. And I was telling them how, I don't know, this was like 10 or so years ago, but I was in Montreal, and some buddies there would get pizza, and they were from France. And while everybody else was just having their normal pizza, these French guys would take raw eggs and crack the raw eggs on top of the pizza, and they would eat it like that. And I always thought that was the weirdest thing.
That sounds interesting.
I
mean, you can't knock it till you try it, right?
I guess. I don't know. The raw.
I don't eat eggs.
Yeah. Yeah.
How about the escargot on the pizza? I don't know.
Not sure.
I would try it. I'd try it.
Okay.
And then I'd never have it again.
Right.
The flavor of salmonella.
Yeah. Exactly. It's okay. Thomas, have you had raw egg on your pizza? Snails. Oh, the escargot. Okay.
It's just fascinating. My wife is from France. She doesn't like escargot though. She thinks it's weird that French people eat snails, and she's from Paris too. So.
Wow. How did you meet? That's a cool story.
Yeah, I was actually a missionary at the time.
Okay.
And we fell in love, but it was like the start of it.
Yeah.
And so I had to wait 2 years to start dating.
All right. Well, oh, so
it was one of those weird romances where it's like I knew I liked her, but I didn't know if she liked me.
Okay.
And she knew she liked me, but didn't want to say anything either. And it was just, I don't know. It was a beautiful story, honestly.
That is cool. I like that.
It is. I was so happy. We were both like ecstatic. We were like, really? You waited 2 years?
Wow.
Such a Utah story.
Well, it isn't. It's not. It's not that you met at BYU.
Oh, good point. No, my experience at BYU is very different than that.
Yeah.
I came as a married student, and it's
Oh.
very different as a married person.
There you go.
It was good though. I had good teachers.
Oh, good. Good. Yeah, I never did BYU. I did UVU for a while. University of Utah. Westminster was amazing. That was a fun one. I really liked small classes, really great teachers. That was good.
Yeah, I think we have some pretty great schools here in Utah.
I agree with that.
I feel like they're doing a pretty good job at modernizing for their computer science programs too. When I was in BYU, we studied C++,
Oh.
and that's a gift that kept on giving. That was nice.
I'm jealous.
Even though I never used it again.
Well, but the training
Yeah.
is so invaluable. And I keep saying that. I have an employee who works for me at NGConf and Thinkster, and he's in that right now. He's he's at BYU going through those classes, and I always ask him what he's learning, and I'm just always so jealous of, oh, I wish I had taken those classes myself. But it
Yeah.
sounds so great.
I would love to just go back to school for fun.
I know.
When I stopped caring about making money so much.
Right. Yeah. If you only had the time, you could potentially, you can audit classes and go for free, but
True. Yeah.
show me what free time you have to do that and I'll be all over it.
Yeah. Well, with my 3 kids
Yeah.
and full-time job, it's a lot. It's a lot right now.
So Michael, where did you go to school?
I went to BYU,
Did you? Okay. And what did you major in?
information systems.
Okay.
Yep.
Very cool. Okay.
Yeah. When I was at BYU, there's this funny thing that happened. It wasn't funny for us, but we like to laugh at it. My wife, we lived in on-campus housing, and my wife, Patricia, she was just opening a cabinet, trying to cook some lunch for herself. And the cabinet they had like super heavy materials to make that housing at the time. And the cabinet door just like rotted off and fell on her head. And she got a severe concussion.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
And that pretty much ended my time at BYU.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, and it was kind of traumatic at the time because like we didn't know what was available to help, and there really wasn't anything. We asked for help. It's like, can somebody help with know what to do about this? And she had a couple seizures based on it. It was crazy. It was a tough time. On top of that, with finals and everything going on, I was struggling.
Yeah. Finals are stressful enough as it is.
So I can kind of like, yeah, they are. And so I can relate to Kevin on the chat, not being super family friendly, because I was just like, it really wasn't for me.
I was married, but I lived off campus in Orem. And I mean, there's a lot of things that aren't super awesome about BYU. It's especially bad before you're in an actual program. Once you're in a program, they're pretty happy with you, but before then, it's like not great.
I bet they've changed a lot, though. I bet they've improved a lot.
I don't know.
I just have to guess, because every time I go over there, there's like a brand new skyscraper.
That's true, yeah.
I'm just like, this school has changed so much since I went here. And I know everybody says that about their school, but they bulldozed the housing I was in. It's not there anymore.
Yeah, well, that's the difference, I think, right there, because BYU seems like they've replaced a lot, whereas at the U of U, I've noticed since I was there, it's different, but only because they've expanded. There's a lot of new buildings, but they haven't necessarily like replaced anything. So you can still see, things you were familiar with and went to yourself, but BYU is just changing so much.
Yeah, it's like a different place.
Kevin says he graduated last December, and it doesn't sound much different from what you were saying.
Well, congratulations on the graduation.
Yeah. And what did you major in computer science, Kevin, or what was your degree?
I like how we're all just staring at the chat, waiting.
Oh, yeah. Well,
no, you can't speak.
Yeah.
Unless we gave permission to everyone to speak.
We can. That's up to you guys. We have 18. Well, I guess, yeah, we have 18 attendees. Do you want to bring them in, or how do you want to handle that?
I think the raise hand system is probably good, only because I had to massively shorten my talk for this 45 minutes anyways, because I endeavored a little too ambitiously on this talk. And as I was filling it out, I'm like, oh my goodness, this takes way too much time.
So Kevin says he was information science, bachelor's. Even still, don't say just bachelor's. That's that's quite an accomplishment in and of itself.
It is, yeah, for sure. Information systems at BYU, I heard is a pretty good program. I have a couple friends who graduated from it.
That's really cool. Yeah, they seem
I think
like
Michael's one of them. Aren't you?
I'm information systems. It is a good program.
I like how you can get your degree in 6 years. That's cool. Mostly, I just enjoyed playing League of Legends when I went to BYU. That was fun.
Okay, I don't know that one. I hear everybody talk about Dungeons and Dragons, but not. I'm way out of the loop apparently.
Nah, Dungeons and Dragons is like totally in the loop. You're good.
Okay.
But League of Legends is like the popular esport video game when I was at school.
Oh. Okay.
And that game's hard. Like, I had to stop playing because I'd get too mad. I literally at the time I considered trolling people to be a skill. I like in the game, you know. I'm not a troll outside.
Oh yeah.
I was like, if I don't troll them first, they're gonna troll me, and then it'll get in my head. So I got to get in their head before they get in my head. It was crazy times.
Steven says BYU had some esport teams that competed against other colleges. Oh, that's cool. Hung out in the media library. That is cool. I know Joe Eames he started like this online D&D group. So I can't remember what day, but every week they meet and it's just D&D online. So I thought that sounded kind of cool too.
Yeah, that's fun. That game's fun. I've been playing this one that's like that called Endless Realms. Oh. And I'm a big fan, and it's super fun. It's like D&D, but D&D is like, I don't know, 30 years old, more, 40? Yeah. I don't know. It's so old now. And a lot of people feel like it's a little dated and it's got, I don't know. I wanted something fresh. After 15 years of never playing a game like that, I played D&D when I was a kid. I was like, I want to get back into that. And I want it to be something I can do with my kids and my siblings in other states. So I started playing one that was fresh.
Nice. Have you played I can't remember the name. It's a Star Wars one though. And it's like a campaign game. I want to say one of them, because they have one that's for the spaceships. And then there's another one that's for the characters. And I think one of them is called Imperial Assault.
Yeah,
and I
played that one.
The one. You've played that one?
Uh-huh.
Those are so fun. Kind of similar, like you've got, it takes hours and hours to play, and it takes like an hour just to learn how to play. But wow, those are really neat games.
Oh, yeah. These days I'm all about Doom Eternal.
Okay.
That game is wild. It's like basically they have this heavy music, and then when the music gets tough, you start shooting a lot of bad guys, and then after you've shot them all, the music goes away, and that's pretty much the entire summary of that game. And try not to die.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we're at a good time to start. Got a lot to get through today, and hopefully this will help some people. We got 21 people here. We got 48 people said they were coming, but we never get as many people as say they're coming. And I don't blame them. Sometimes I sign up for stuff and can't make it. So.
Okay, cool. We'll go for it. I will mute myself.
All right. So, first of all, thanks to our sponsors. That's Thinkster.io, Wallaby, NGConf, and Hero Devs. So let's talk a little bit about those sponsors. So Wallaby is a sponsor of our meetup. They create awesome software developer productivity tools that run in your JavaScript and TypeScript code immediately as you type, highlighting results in your IDE right next to your code. which is what these little squares are. It's super cool. For more information, you can check it out on wallabejs.com or quokka.js. Another note that's important is that today we'll be handing out a prize to one lucky attendee. Actually, amend that, 3 lucky attendees. And we got a little bit more surprise on that in a second. But one of those prizes is a Wallaby license and a Quokka license, which is like Wallaby for Node. So that's going to be pretty cool. And I wanted to highlight the Angular show. I'm highlighting this because I personally think it's really amazing, and every Angular developer should be listening to this. Anyway, I could talk about this for a while, but it's hosted by our very own co-founder of this meetup, Aaron Frost. So you should go subscribe and try not to miss it. So let's talk about the prizes today. So I don't know if we've ever done this before, but we've got 3 prizes, and they will go to the top 3 scores of our quiz today. So you got to pay attention a little bit to get this prize. So surprise, okay? There are 3 prizes, and 2 of those prizes come from Thinkster. So thank you so much, Thinkster, our sponsor, for providing those prizes. The top prize is going to be a free enterprise NG-Conf workshop ticket. And it is a very valuable prize. It's worth $500. So pay attention and compete, because this is going to be sweet. At the end of both talks, we'll do just a quick quiz and using Kahoot, and we'll get that rolling. The second prize is going to be the Quokka and Wallaby license. Thanks to Wallaby for that. And the third prize is going to be a month free Thinkster Pro membership, which also thanks for that. So I'm really excited to see who wins that. All right. So I'm not only hosting today, I'm also speaking. My talk is on NGRX. The first half of my talk will be geared towards beginners, and the second half will be geared towards people who are more experienced with NGRX, but might be missing a couple of important things about it. So first, let me introduce myself. I'm Erik Slack. I'm a husband, father of 3 beautiful mixed-race children, which I love to bring up. Originally, I'm from Texas. I've moved to Salt Lake County, and I've been doing Angular for around 7 years in both forms. And I've got over 12 years of software development experience. And I love to brag that I'm a top fan of the Endless Realms game. You can't get me to shut up about that. Yeah, that's it. So enough about me. What is NGRX? A lot of you are probably familiar with this already. So those of you who are, bear with me. And yeah. So in short, NGRX provides reactive state for Angular. It's based heavily on Redux, and it heavily leverages RxJS. So some things you should keep in mind before using NGRX is you need to know RxJS before you use this. Also keep in mind that NGRX, it's not meant to be the shortest, quickest, easiest way to write your code. In fact, you're probably going to end up with a bunch of files more than you would have had if you just wrote your own state management system, or if you didn't use a state management system and you said, hey, anything goes. But fortunately, with these extra files, it's not really a big deal. Personally, I can say that. Just use schematics, and there are schematics provided, and we'll talk about that more later, to generate these files for you. And it's nice because we can keep these files to short size. And our good buddy Joe Ames is always telling us, keep our files small to avoid that code smell. So it's not really such a bad thing. All right. Well, why use it? I really want you to use NGRX if you do Angular. I think it's a great tool. And these are the reasons why. We'll start with the official reasons, okay? Type safety. So this is taken from the official website. So Forgive me for repeating this, but this might be new for a few people. So NGRX, type safety is promoted through the architecture with reliance on TypeScript compiler for program correctness. The types are everywhere, and it's very helpful when you're developing. Okay, number 2 is immutability and performance. Store is built on a single immutable data structure, making changes detection turn into a relatively straightforward task. NGRX also provides APIs for creating memoized selector functions that optimize retrieving data from your state. I'm going to talk a lot more about those selectors later on. In fact, a little bit more in the next slide or next couple slides. Encapsulation. So basically you can separation of concerns, right? Single responsibility principle. Let's keep our data stuff away from our components, isolating it, and like network requests, WebSockets, business logic, let's keep it away from the UI as much as possible. That way we can simplify our components a lot. And 4 is serializability. That's a really hard word. I practiced that before I did this talk many times in front of the mirror. So hopefully I got it right. It ensures that your state is predictably stored. So a couple use cases for that is you can save your state to local storage, which can be really great because you can actually rehydrate your NGRX code or your NGRX data. Okay, there's your data saved on coming back to that tab. That can be really cool, and it seamlessly works with NGRX. Okay. In addition, it allows you to inspect, download, upload, and dispatch actions all from the stored dev tools, which is pretty cool because you can do that. Like you can change your app and see it in different configurations from outside of your application. You don't have to make a button to launch your action. You can use the store dev tools, which makes use of the Redux dev tools, Chrome plugin extension, whatever they call it. Number 5, it's testable. Because store uses pure functions for changing state and selecting data from state, the ability to isolate side effects from the UI and test, because it can do that, testing becomes very straightforward. Okay. It also provides some tools to help with the testing too, to make things a little bit easier, such as provide mock store, provide mock actions. Also, I want to talk about some things that aren't on the NGRX website. So from Erik Slack, these 5 things are very important. And I would ask you to use NGRX if these things appeal to you, okay? Number 1, it provides a consistent approach to state. That means your developers are all managing state the same way, decreasing overall complexity. I worked on a project a few years back where there were a lot of developers on that project. It was a very successful project, by the way, but the state was just held in services all over the place. I never knew where something was coming from. Part of the problem was because that was Angular JS times. But part of the problem was we didn't have a centralized data store. And I kept running into these difficulties in debugging things. And I'm like, man, I wish we just had one place that I could go figure out how this data got here. And NGRX gives me that. Number 2, it helps with debugging data-driven logic. Using the NGRX dev tools to explore the state, what the state was when an error happened can greatly speed up fixing the problem. I'll demo that a little bit to you going like later in the presentation. I'll do this live coding session where I don't actually code anything because that would take way too much time. But I will show you some code I've already prepared for you. Number 3, it's commonly used by many companies. This means that Angular developers will be able to take their skills with them to the next company they work for. Now, that's not always true. There are a lot of companies that don't use NGRX. They use a different state platform, and there are others, okay? There are even others based on RxJS. But I will say that NGRX is a very popular one. It's used even at Google. It's used in a lot of places. So I will say your skills as an Angular developer with this tool will take you far, okay? Number 4, it's open sourced and well-maintained. Updates are regular and impactful. Usually they either make it easier to use NGRX or they make it more efficient somehow. Oftentimes it's both. sometimes they just blow my mind and they throw something at you like NGRX component. And I'm like, oh, I didn't even think you were going to go there, but you did. And we'll talk about NGRX component too later on. The community, number 5, the community likes it. There are plenty of resources that will help you learn to use NGRX that will make it easier and help you debug your issues. You know, they're all over Stack Overflow. There's excellent documentation. So it's a great choice, okay? So hopefully I've convinced you a little bit. Now, if you want to get down to specific use cases, on their website, they have this, I think it's Sherry principle. I'm just gonna say Sherry, even though that's like somebody's name, maybe Shari. Anyway, so while I read this, I want you to think in your head, does my app need ... before each line, okay? So these are the use cases for NGRX. Shared, state that is accessed by many components and services. Again, does my app need? State that is persisted and rehydrated from external storage. State that needs to be available when re-entering routes. Or state that needs to be retrieved with a side effect. Or state that is impacted by actions from outside sources, okay? If any of these are true of the app that you want to build or that your company wants to build, it's definitely these are great use cases for NGRX. Maybe you should use it in your next application. Or if you've used it before, come back to it because it's improved a lot since last time you used it, most likely. Unless last time you used it was yesterday. And then it probably hasn't improved that much. So I like to do this thing where I contact people. So I told Mike Ryan via Twitter that I'd be giving this talk. And Mike Ryan is a core contributor for NGRX. He's kind of a big deal. And he's like, hey, Eric, send this to the people in Utah. So I'm not going to read it to you. I'm not going to read this one to you. But I just want you guys to feel the love from Mike Ryan. And I want to say, thanks, Mike. We hope you are likewise safe and healthy, and your family as well. All right, let's dive into the basics. This part is mainly geared towards beginners. And I mean, honestly, I can always use a refresher on this stuff. And doing this talk was massively helpful to me, okay? So NGRX state management lifecycle. I put little numbers here to demonstrate the order I want you to think your way through this diagram, okay? And if you didn't see my hand motions just now, I literally pointed it with my fingers, okay? Because that's how great of a presenter I am. So first of all, let's start with component. Then we're gonna talk about action. Then we're gonna talk about effects, and which are going to launch data, like request data from services. And then we're gonna go back to actions. And then we're gonna go to the reducer and the store. And then we're gonna get back to the component through the selector, okay? There's about 6 steps. And we're gonna talk about that in more depth. We're gonna come back to this chart. But I want you to know what these things mean before we do, okay? So the first thing is actions. Let's define them. They describe unique events that are dispatched from the components and services. Okay, I've got a couple of examples of code, but honestly, we'll actually dive into some of my code, which is the best code for right now because I'm speaking. But actions are basically, you can think of them as the directory of things you can do. Action, it's a verb, right? So it's the stuff you can do with your state. All right, effects. Effects isolate side effects from components, allow for more pure components that select state and dispatch actions. Effects are long-running services that listen to an observable of every action dispatched from the store. Effects filter those actions down to the type of action that they're interested in. This is done by using an operator in RxJS. Effects perform tasks, which are synchronous or asynchronous, and return a new action. So whenever you want to do something like get some data, you're going to do it through an effect, okay? Whenever you want to trigger, I don't know. It's a great thing that you can use for triggering snack bars, aka toasts, growls, whatever you want to call them. You can, because you got an error, there's a lot of great uses for effects, but basically it's anytime you want to do something that's aside, that's based on your state, or that's sort of aside from your UI. That's aside from the main purposes. Okay. Reducers. Reducers handle state changes. They take the current state and the latest action and then compute a new state. That should sound pretty simple because it is in the way that they explain it. How that all works, I'm not going to explain. I don't know. But I take for granted the fact that reducers take the state as it is, then give a little bit more data and combine it and replace the state with a new one. That way they're not mutating anything. It's immutable. So we want it to never mutate. We want it to replace, and we want to get our data into that state, okay? And it's not just for adding data. We can set flags there, whatever we want to do, okay? So basically just think of that. Reducers, sounds like a scary word maybe, but all it does is change the state, but not update it, replace it. Store. So we access the data in our state through the store. I don't have a picture for this one. I like to think of it as where the data lives. They explain it as the thing that gives you access to where the data lives. Okay? So selectors are pure functions used to select, derive, compose pieces of state. Your selectors are what your components are going to use to get the state out of the store. Okay, you have to select state out of a store. You should always be using selectors for this. Selectors are great. They're just functions that you pass in the global state and you get back a substate of that state based on what you're needing. Okay, one of the ways NGRX will help you optimize your calculations is by using selectors. Seriously, we'll discuss this a lot more a little bit later. All right, I said we'd come back to this and we did. So first, in my component, I need some data. So I'm going to, can you see my mouse? Let's see, there's a pointer. Oh, that's cool. So we all know components. That's the bread and butter of Angular. It's bread and butter of many front-end frameworks, okay? So what do we do with NGRX? First, I need some data. So I'm gonna dispatch an action, and that action is gonna be called load data. And that will immediately make, then there's an effect that is listening for that specific action by its type, okay? It's listening for the load data action. And so that effect will then perform a HTTP request to our service, and any database work happens there, whatever. We get the response back. It's got the data we want, and now we've got our data. So then from our effect, we can dispatch another action. In fact, they're built to dispatch another action by default. So we're going to dispatch the action called load data success. Now that we've got our load data, now that we've got our data, we're going to pass it into that action, okay? When the reducer, in the reducer, similar to how the effects does it, we're listening to actions of type load data success. And when we get that type, it's going to then produce a new state based on the combination of the data we passed to it and what the old state was. Or we can completely replace it. We can do anything in a reducer, but that's typically what we do. We take the data that's there and we add some more. So then the selector, my component can already be subscribed to that data. There's already an observable that it can subscribe to that selector, okay? I can make an observable, or I can make one. But before all this happens, it's not going to have anything. It's going to be empty, okay? Or it's not going to emit anything, okay? So the selector, however, is how I'm going to access my new data from my store and get it in my component. And rinse and repeat, okay? Cool. So that's basically how it's gonna work in your application. I had a different example app prepared, but it was gonna take too much time for this presentation, so I decided to show you one that I had built earlier, and I didn't want you guys to sense how big of a nerd I am, so I was like, I'm gonna take a little nerdiness out of this but now I'm putting it all back in. I'm gonna own that. All right. So we're going to see a list of campaigns, parties, notes, players, and monsters. This is great for any of you D&D fans out there. It's also great for any of you Endless Realms fans out there. Okay, you're also going to be able to click on the details, click to get details about each of these. All right, that doesn't sound really all that impressive. You can easily do that in any app, but I'm going to show you how the state is used in the application. All right, so this is where I get brave and I open my IDE. I hope you all can see my screen, but if you can't, just blow up the chat. Okay, so I have an app, and it's the Game Master app. Okay, I think in D&D they're called Dungeon Masters. Okay, so basically, I want to build an app that lets game masters prepare for their games by creating campaign modules or creating parties and assigning those parties campaigns. But I'm just at the beginning of this application. Okay, so it's not all that cool yet. But the first thing I wanted to do was add some state to it. You're still seeing the presentation. Okay. Thank you, Steve. Let me see if I can change that. How about now? Can you see my IDE now? All right. Thank you, Steve. So this app, I wanted to add some state to it so that I could have my players, so I could have my campaigns, so I could have my monsters. I wanted to track all of them. So the way that I did that was first, I installed NGRX, okay? Yeah, no problem. Let me do that. Oop, that might be a little too big. We don't need this. Yeah, no problem. Thanks for speaking up. So, all right. So I wanted to state, how do you do it? This is how you install, okay? This is kind of annoying. I wanted to share my whole screen, but I'm sharing a specific, here we go. Nope, that one. Okay, you should still be able to see my IDE, and I want to be able to swap between this and that easily, okay? So that's a bright yellow screen. Hopefully it didn't blind anybody. But I want you to know the versions of things that I'm using, okay? And all of this information, you can just look up right here. I'm not gonna click the link, but basically this is how I prepared this talk, and I followed all the steps, and they work great, okay? But there's something that I wanna tell you, and that is I did it without using the tool I'm about to tell you about, and I did it with the tool. And it's so much easier, at least for me, to use NGRX with Narwhal NX, which is a mono repo with tooling provided by Narwhal, okay? So this entire thing was made using Narwhal, and I'm gonna show you a couple of Narwhal things, NX things, and Angular, well, NX console things, okay, that will make things easier. I did the other app with just NGRX, and it was way more painful. And to be honest, I haven't done NGRX for real without Narwhal NX mono repo in a while. So I'm gonna show you the way that's easiest. And it really is very easy, okay? So in order to use Narwhal NX, like you can just go to their website and they'll basically be, they'll have the same thing. In fact, let me just find all of it. Here's NGRX. I'm gonna open Narwhal because I didn't prepare it. I really want you guys to have just, to me, what's the easiest way to learn NGRX. And you don't have to use everything about NX, but one of the cool things about it is it provides you a tool called the NX console, okay? And the NX console allows you to run your schematics, which is an Angular thing. Schematics build code, build files on the fly for you, edit files, and it does it in a way that is just super helpful, okay? So when people build schematics, and you can build your own schematics, they can speed you up a lot. And so NGRX is a very good use case for that because it generates a bunch of files. So it's better to generate them than to make them yourself. Anyway, enough about that. you can get started here, and the install is here on this website, nxdev angular get started ynx. Well, the install is like right here. You create an application using this. It literally walks you through the process. You have an app similar to how using the Angular CLI does it for you. But it's a monorepo, so you can have multiple apps and multiple libs in the same code, okay? Which is nice, especially for NGRX, because you might have multiple states. Remember how I have players, campaigns, modules, or notes, monsters? I have all these different states. And so I want to be able to access them as separate libs, because not all of my components are going to need all that data, okay? And you can do that. So it's very easy to do by creating libs. All right, I'm going to move on from this topic, but you're going to see a little bit in my code. So I wanted data. What did I do? This is so big, I have to click on that. Okay. So I'm going to generate a new state library. So I'm going to type NGRX into this console. This is the NX console. It's built into VS Code. And VS Code is a wonderful IDE. There's a lot of really great ones out there like WebStorm and others. But I heard that this plugin was only made for VS Code. So you might need to get VS Code to use this. All right, moving on. So NGRX actually has a bunch of these. Yeah, oh, thanks, Michael. Yeah, he says it's only for VS Code. So NGRX has a bunch of built-in schematics as well, which is pretty cool. But I like this one by Narwhal because it actually gives you a lot more options to it. So, for example, I'm creating an entire state library. Let me pick one that I haven't done yet. How about, it's called Endless Realms. Let's do worlds. How about that? So I just type in worlds, and this is nice because it's even telling me, oh, well, you should, the standard is to give it, you know, a plural name, stuff like that. So I do that. Now I'm going to tell it which module to choose. Well, I don't really know which module I want to use that. Actually, no, I do. I have to, it looks like. My kids are trying to bust into my office. We'll do, anyway, I thought this did project. Why is project not showing up? This is a little too big for me. All right, well, whatever. So I guess you have to put in the direct path to it, and that's fine. Starts at root. We're gonna go into libs. We're gonna go into our library, which is gonna be called worlds, which doesn't actually exist. So I'm going to use one that I already know that exists. You can use these tools to also create a lib, which I'm not gonna do, but we can create one inside of one that already exists. Let's do monsters / libs shared. I happen to know this off the top of my head, but really you just look through here. Shared, not shared, yeah, shared state, monsters, and then I don't know everything off the top of my head. Shared state, monsters, source lib. That used to be easier. I wonder if I'm doing something wrong. But yeah. And then where's the module? There it is. Shared state monster. Shared state monsters.module.ts. And it just keeps dry running as you're typing. There we go. Cool. So if I click this button down here, well, up here, run, it's going to do this for real instead of just dry run. It's going to create my actions. Remember, we talked about that. All of these effects, even spec files. Remember how it's testable? They show you how to. They give you example files just right there with all of your stuff. It's super nice using these schematics. Effects, models. You can store some interfaces and stuff in there. Reducer, selectors, so on and so forth. And it updates my module for me. So I'm going to pretend like I ran this, and instead I'm going to, and facades. Facades are cool. I'm not going to talk about that today. Instead, I'm just going to show you the monster one, which I did generate. Okay, it's pretty much what it is when you start out with. Okay, so what it generates is like basically load monsters. You said you're going to store monsters in here, so it pre-generated some actions for you, so you can quickly get started. Okay. All right. So these are the things we can do: load monsters success, load monsters fit. We have our TS file, or effects file, and remember the effect is where we're going to actually get stuff done. We're going to do our busy work. Go get some data from a server, or reset the state, or actually not even that. You wouldn't do that here. You do that in a reducer. You could do stuff like launching a snack bar because we got an error and we want to show this snack bar on the screen that says, hey, something went wrong, sorry about that. So these are just the pre-generated ones, okay? I'll show you a more filled out one soon, okay? But let's move on. Facade, I generated it with a facade. I'm not going to tell you what facades are. Yeah, it's just easy. It's just a centralized place to keep all of your selectors. That way your components are accessing them through the facade. It's a pattern. It's an accepted pattern, and there are other reasons to use facades too. But I like it because it's just a centralized place to keep my selectors and my actions. Okay. So this is what it gives you by default. It gives you an entity. Also, I didn't see a way to use entity from scratch from the NGRX built-in schematics, but they do have it with the NGRX schematic, which to me saves me a bunch of time in figuring out how to make entity adapter work. And we won't talk about that either today in very much detail. But here's a reducer file, and these are your basic reducers. One of the things that I told you is that if you used NGRX in the past and you haven't used it in a while, consider using it again. One of the reasons why you may not have liked NGRX in the past was the boilerplate, okay? Brandon Roberts gets teased about that by his account all the time. But honestly, NGRX used to have a lot more boilerplate than it does now, thanks to these creator functions. They're functions that create these reducers. They're also used to create actions, okay? And even used to create effects now, which means these functions are reducing the amount of code that we do in NGRX significantly from where it was given, say, like a year ago or a year and a half ago. I don't know, whenever these came out, these creators. So remember, the reducer takes the state as it is and takes from the action some new data and updates the state with that data. So first of all, we have it on load monsters, we're just setting it the initial state, okay? And actually, it starts with just the initial state. So I'm not sure why. I guess in case you want to do some other things, like if you had a loading flag, maybe you could set that to true here. I've done that before. But there's other things to do. I'm not super proud of doing that, by the way, so nobody hate me. But there's a lot you can do on the loading of something that you basically want to prepare to get new data. It's a good thing to do. There's a lot of use cases of that. Here on the success, we want to update the state with the new state, with the new data that we've got, okay? And that's what the load success and the load failure will save the error to the state, so we can take a look at it there. We're gonna explore how this actually visualize this a little bit through the Redux DevTools Chrome extension in a second. But I can't leave out selectors, super important. Every time I talk to or listen to even, because I do that a lot more, every time I listen to presentations about NGRX, the people who make NGRX, the core contributors, are always telling people, you need to use selectors more. And I'll tell you why about that soon. But remember, selectors are what gets our state out, so we can use it in our component. And I'll tell you more about that. So setting it up in the module, it does this for us too. We're going to use for feature because remember, I put this into a lib. So you can have state in two ways. You can have it as a feature that you can bring in when you need it to a module, or you can have it as the root state for a module, and you can say for root. But you wouldn't do that in a lib. That doesn't really make a ton of sense. It doesn't make any sense to me. Maybe there's a use case, but you do that. You would likely do that in an application. Give it a root state so that you can then combine multiple states into that state in various ways. Don't let that worry you too much right now. I sort of just want you to see the basic building blocks and how it all works. I feel like I'm just trying to go over in my head everything that I wanted to tell you. I wanted you to know how to install it. Remember, it's pretty simple. I mean, if you're just gonna do an NG app, you can do, or NG, what is it? NG, yeah, app. Or is it new? Sorry, it's new. NG new open app. You can do, you can do that, my app, whatever. And then you can use various things, and we'll show that right now. So I don't feel like I touched on this quite enough. You can, use these. I like to use this one, ng add, NGRX store, latest. Basically, it will not only install the dependency, it will also try to help you get started by updating your module file. So that's pretty cool for your default app, whichever app that is. And I tried this. I didn't like this very much. I don't recommend using that. But that's just me. Maybe there is a good use case for that. Again, I love to do it through Narwhal. So if we, I don't know that. Oh, here it is. So if you create it this way, then it's almost the same. You basically can still add NGRX store to it, and then you need to add whatever dependencies you want to use, because NGRX is bigger than just the store. It has other components you want to use. Effects is commonly used with the store, but it's actually not included in store. So you probably want to add effects. In fact, let me go back to this page real quick. Anybody who's wondering what you're going to need to get started in your app, here it is. It's on this page, okay? So, well, and I didn't even include everything because there's effects, there's store dev tools. What are the dev tools? I've talked about that a bunch, okay? So, by the way, here's my application. I have a home and all these pages of the things that I wanted to do. I pre-built this for you, so we could save a lot of time. But I'm gonna refresh here, so my state is fresh. And I'm going to open the Redux DevTools. To get the Redux DevTools, I never know the fastest way to do this. I feel like a lot of people just do it their own way, but I would just do extensions up. But then I want to add a new one, and I have to click over here, do this. I don't know a faster way to do that. If somebody knows, share it in the chat, and you can help save me a few minutes in the future. But yeah, you just search it for Redux DevTools, okay? And there it is. I've already got it installed, so I can't install it again. All right, so that's as easy as it is to get the Redux DevTools into your browser so you can visualize your state, okay? So let's visualize our state. Where is it? All right, there we go. So here's our state. Notice it's got this nicely broken down into the parts. And right now, it's all of these different state libs are just loading the default state. And so it's empty. It's useless right now. But notice what happens as we continue along. I'm going to go to the campaigns page. And look, an action was dispatched called load campaigns. And that went and got some data. If you don't believe me, I actually created a Firebase backend with a database, with a cloud Firestore. and it's actually getting real data from my database. So the load campaigns didn't do anything except set error as null for some reason. But load campaign success, remember that chart? We go and we launch an act, we dispatch an action, it goes and triggers an effect that's listening for that action, then it goes back to launch another action, then it goes up, and this is all in the chart, that's why I'm pointing, and the reducer is listening for the success action, and then it updates the state. And that's exactly what it's doing here. We got some entities, and we can now access that. Okay, well, how do we access that? Well, actually, before we do that, let's go look at the state that's all about campaigns. Because monsters, I kept this as, well, I'll be honest, I just didn't get to it yet. But it's honestly a great place to start because this is what was generated for monsters automatically. So I'm going to go to campaign effect. So when we load campaigns, this is the effect that's triggered. I use Angular Firestore, which is super awesome. Very easy to use way of interfacing with your Firebase database directly through your code. And I get the campaigns collection, and I'm not doing anything special with it. I'm just getting all campaigns for now. Eventually, I'll probably want to optimize that to only get campaigns for a specific user. And then I dispatch another action called load campaign success, and I pass in the data that I was given. When you're getting started, you might not have a backend. So you can totally mock data, just throw it in here. In fact, I think I have one with note. No, not notes. I think I have one with parties, straight parties. Yeah, parties. So I'm literally just passing in a constant to this effect. And what's great about that is like, I'm already halfway there. Actually like 90% there. Once my backend is ready, I can substitute this for what's just like we had in monsters. Not monsters, campaigns. It's like, yeah, this time we're going to do a HTTP call. In this case, I'm using Angular Fire to do that for me. And I can just use the data. So it's really, I can pre-build so much without even having a backend. Anyway, I feel like that's a really useful point, especially for people who are starting out, okay? So that way you can get something working without having any real data to worry about. All right, moving on. So effect gets the data, launches stuff, we go to the reducer, it updates the state, cool. Now what was the next part? Selectors. Selectors are what brings that state to the component, okay? So let's take a look at our campaign selectors. I don't want monster anymore. So selectors also have creator functions now. Seriously, they've made everything so easy for us. Definitely come back. If you have used it and you didn't like it, try it again. So the get campaigns, we have all these different selectors. And what it does, remember selectors compose, select, like derive state. Whatever it is that you want to get out of your store, out of your state, you can use a selector to get a specific thing. I don't suggest making a selector for every piece of your state. It's better to have maybe a couple pieces and the entire entity, okay? And a lot of times you're gonna end up with states that's like, I wanna get all campaigns, or I wanna get a specific campaign by its ID, right? They pre-populated all of this for me, I think. Yeah, they did. So this was all done for me using the schematic. How it's never been easier to get into this, honestly. Like I made a lib, I did all that with schematics. Anyway, I'm close to the end of the time that I've given for this particular part of the thing. So I do want to show you a little bit more about the dev tools. You'll notice that you can actually go back in time and take a look. What was the state at that point? What was the state at this point? And if you have an error, you can see what was passed in via the action. What was the data that was passed in? Oh, I had an error that broke my app. Like, why? Well, maybe let's take a look at the data. Maybe the data wasn't in the right format, or maybe I got undefined back from the server. Like, yeah, you can check your network tab and you can see a lot, but I guarantee you can see so much more when you have a centralized data state using NGRX and you're using the stored dev tools to figure it out. Cool. So that's fun. And just to be fun, look, I even have a fun little chart of my data, which is completely useless, but it's so pretty. Okay. I think it's completely useless, but I love looking at it. And it will impress the bosses. Cool. Enough with that. All right, so how do we get the selector? How do we use the selector in the component? I'm just going to touch on briefly the facade. So remember, this is just a place that this is something that I've created so that I can access a single thing that contains all of my functions in it, all of my actions in it that I'm going to use. That way I don't have to remember them all from the top of my head. And I don't, and that way it's just a central place. You don't need facades. You don't need them at all. You can just use this directly from your component. I like to do it. Okay, moving on. In my component, I'm going to go to my lib component for campaigns. Here we go. This is all like it's like pre-generated. It's all made for me by the schematics that created the lib. Okay. What's not created for me is the usage of my state. So that's pretty simple. I just imported my facade. Again, you don't need a facade. You don't have to use that, but I like it. There's a lot of good reasons to use it. Campaigns $. Campaigns $, basically is the observable that contains the campaigns. And then we have we're loading the campaigns. I'm dispatching the action through the facade by saying load all, okay? So if I just had this, then I would never have triggered the action to go and get the state. By doing this, I'm getting the state. This is what the observable, the property on the component, which I'm housing the data that I got out of the state via the selector. Okay. All right, I'm done with this part. I'm running super short on time because I'm very long-winded. We're going to continue on with this presentation, get as far as we can. So we did that. Fun thing, Brandon Roberts gives this advice to all of you Angular developers here and other developers. Give back to your community. If you're a React developer, same thing. Give back to your community if at all possible. It always pays back more in the long run. Thanks, Brandon. Selectors double take. I was going to play this. It's hilarious. That's Brandon Roberts. He's super smart. He's super funny. And he teaches this very easily. I've got a link that I can share with you to his talk at NGConf, or you can just Google it, and it will tell you how to use selectors very in depth. Okay, I'm just going to go into it very briefly. So how to optimize using selectors? Computations are expensive. Okay, we all know that computations are expensive. Processing your data after you get it, mapping it to what you need it to be for the view model, it's expensive. So we can improve that by using selectors by a ton. Okay, selectors are pure functions. They're predictable. They're consistent. For any given input, the output will always be the same. So if the state hasn't changed, and then it's going to give you the same thing. Okay, use selectors to pick out entity objects from your entire state. There's an important concept called memoization, which you may already be familiar with due to Angular's pipes. Okay, pipes are also memoized. And basically it means even if the input's changed and it produces the same result, then the value remains the same and it won't emit something new. Okay. Also, selectors can be inputs to other selectors. That's where what they're talking about. The experts, the people who made this, when they're saying people don't use selectors enough. Because over here, and I'm going to paraphrase this, so sorry I'm going off my presentation a little bit, but basically I have my campaigns, but I'm not doing anything with it. I'm not processing it. I'm not changing it. But in almost every application, you're going to be combining the campaigns with more data, such as parties or players or sessions maybe. And so you'll want to be able to get a specific session with all the campaign data in it. And to do that, you're going to want to use selectors to derive the specific campaign that you want. Say I click on one of the campaigns in this list. Where is it? I can't find it. But anyway, say I clicked on one of my campaigns, you saw it, and I want to show a bunch of stuff about that campaign specifically, or I want to edit that campaign specifically, but it would also be nice to show all the players that are playing that campaign, when it was last played, whatever like that. You're going to use selectors to combine your data so that you can map it. And the reason why you're going to do that is because you're going to have memoized results, and it's not going to continually have to get all that data and do all those computations all over again. If the state hasn't changed for any of those selectors, then it's already stored. So if I'm using a selector on top of another selector, and basically I'm taking campaigns and I'm taking party, and I need those together for some reason. If party hasn't changed, it's going to return the same result. If campaign hasn't changed, it's going to return the same result on that. If parties has changed and campaigns hasn't, it's going to return the same result for that one. Okay? We need to be doing this more. I'm guilty of this. I do a lot of stuff in my component. It's okay. But you can optimize your app a great deal by using selectors, okay? It really helps for big apps with big sets of data. Got a question? So it is, in effects, creates a form of computationally pruning where only things that have changed will actually execute. So not in the effects, remember the selectors. But yes, it's going to, exactly. Only things that are changed are going to emit new values to your observables. Perfect. Cool. Now I'm running really low on time. So let me finish up. We're going to skip all this. NGRX component, it's cool. Why is it cool? Well, first of all, it's still experimental, and that makes everything cooler. Just kidding. So far, it includes NGRX pushpipe and NGRX let. Basically, this project by NGRX is a set of primitive reactive helpers to enable fully reactive, zoneless applications. They give more control over rendering and provide further reactivity for Angular applications. There's a lot of benefits for zoneless. Remember, this is like for pros, okay? You probably, if you're new to Angular, you probably don't even know what zoneless is. I still am learning about what zoneless means. And I had to, anyway, so basically there's a lot of benefits towards getting to where we can use Angular zoneless, which has optimizations, further optimizations for runtime, okay? But I'm gonna just focus more on the zoneful stuff with the time that we have left. Basically, NGRX let is a convenient way of binding observables to a view context. If you've ever worked with observables and NGRX, or just observables, you know that you use the async pipe all the time, and yeah, you've got some data, but a lot of times you have to use like ngIfs here and to make sure that the data's like there. You'll have ng-fors and you'll be using the async pipe just on the fly, but you might have multiple spots where you're using the same observable. For example, campaigns. If I'm using it in the same place on the same in multiple places on the same component, when you use the async pipe in multiple places, you're actually subscribing multiple times to the same thing instead of using the same subscription. There are ways around that. There are ways to fix that. But I find NGRX let a really great way to do that because it just makes it really simple. I can just get my observable as n, and then I can use n anywhere I want to, which you can do if you're like kind of tricky. You can actually do right now ngIf, and you can say, you can put your observable in there, async pipe it, and then you can semicolon, and then you can say let campaigns, and then you can use campaigns anywhere you want to. I've been using that just because, but it's really hidden in the documentation of Angular, and it's not all that useful because a lot of times you're checking for if it's loaded or not, and it's difficult to use. This is very easy to use. Cool. There's a lot of benefits here. Hopefully you got to read some of them. I'm out of time. there's one more thing about NGRX let that I wanted to show you, and that is that you can actually let the various parts of an observable, like if an error happens, you can actually trigger stuff based on that using it. Super cool. Sorry, I don't have much time to talk about this. Let's talk about NGRX push pipe. It's a drop-in replacement for the async pipe. It works in zoneless and zoneful applications. Cool. But what does it do for me now in my zoneful applications? Because we're not really making a lot of zoneless applications yet. And I just had a brain fart. It happens. You know, it gives us some distinct same values in a row. We can do that as O thing. That's helpful for the same reason I just talked about the other one. But basically, it's a pipe. It's a pipe, and it's useful, and it could end up replacing our usage of the async pipe everywhere, because we use the async pipe a lot. Oh, thanks, Michael. Handles null and undefined values. Yes, that is true. And I think it's somewhere in this thing. Cool. Live coding time. Nope, not doing that. You should attend NGRX Conf. I can't say this enough. I would love to go. Maybe I'll go. I don't know. But it's awesome. And you can go to this website and get tickets. And thank you. Please follow me on Twitter. I'm happy to, you feel free to DM me. This is basically my public face to the world. My LinkedIn is not. Feel free to hit me up, ask me questions, make fun of me, tell me jokes, whatever. And also come, because I will share tons of things that I'm learning about Angular, and also really cool things in the community that you might not have known about. Cool. And that is all. So I am going to give it over to Michael Madsen for his talk on RxRs. Hopefully Brooke can help me with that.
Gotta stop sharing. There we go. Now I should be able to.
Well,
Can people see my presentation?
yes.
Cool. Missing. I was going to try to have the comments up as well, but I'm not seeing how. Oh, there we go. It closed when that's not it. Is that it? Nope. There we go. Okay. Found it. Now I have the chat open. Okay. Well, let's get started. So this is Reactive Responsive Design. I'm Michael Madsen. My GitHub is MGM87, and my Twitter is Madsen87. And let's just jump right in. So Reactive Responsive Design. First, we're going to start with what is responsive design. And that is UI that reacts to screen size. So that typically depends on media queries. And even if you don't directly interact with media queries in your CSS, if you're using a library, or if you have used a library like, say, Bootstrap or whatever, internally they're using media queries. So there's not really around using media queries to do responsive design. The only problem is that media queries are a mess. Some people kind of balk at that, but those people are usually people that have used media queries a lot and have come to an understanding with them. But I'm going to show you why they're a mess and why we need a change. So, how are media queries a mess? First issue is there's no organization. To show this, I'm going to drag over an example here. So media queries often look something like this. Okay, so I have the CSS file. We have these two classes in each of these query sections. So these are for different size screens. So under 599 pixels, you'll get this styling. Between 600 and 1023 pixels, you get this styling. So this is cool, but it has a downside in that if you come into a project and there's some sort of CSS bug, and you open the CSS file and it's 1,000 lines and the class that you're looking for is scattered throughout the file because it's in different media query sections, you're gonna be looking at a lot of things that ideally you wouldn't have to look at, like making sure that the queries aren't overlapping or all sorts of things. It's just hard to navigate. So to address that, some people do something like this, where they group the styles here, but this is not super readable and also bloats the file by a lot. As you can see, you're basically doing a media query definition, and your class is also less performant. So it's not ideal. So there's not a great organizational scheme for media queries. Next reason why they're a mess is that there's different queries, and especially under larger teams or larger projects where different teams are working on different portions of the project, different queries can become an issue. If you aren't standardized on like where your breakpoints are, you can run into a situation where it's like, oh, the main view of this page that your team handles, it breaks to a mobile size layout at this point, but the top bar or the side nav maybe don't break at that point into the mobile version, and so you have kind of a disconnect there. And then the question is, who's using the right sizes? Anyways, those kinds of discussions can be avoided if you can have a standardized set of sizes, especially if it's standardized in code where you don't have to, by convention or in code reviews, make sure everyone's meeting the right sizes. Another issue is that you can only use screen width. So this is when you're using a width media query. It looks at the full screen's width. You can't be like, how wide is this content area? It's how wide is my screen? And that can cause problems with some more complex layouts. You'll see something in a minute. This is one that really annoys me, is that the components will always load. So if you think about what is the smallest screen device that you're likely going to have your app used on? That would be a phone. What is the lowest spec device that's probably going to use your app? Probably a phone. So in effect, if there's components that you're hiding for mobile sizes, those components are still going to generate and bootstrap and everything, because a media query is just going to use CSS to hide the element. That means that Angular is still going to generate the element, and then it's going to be hidden by CSS. So it's like a performance overhead that you really don't need. And that's just it's a shortcoming of how media queries are working. Another issue is that they're difficult to test because it's a UI thing. You got to resort to end-to-end tests or like visual regression testing or things like that in order to see how your screen is actually laying out and make sure that it's still laying out as expected. So moving on, what do we do? So as you may have guessed by the title, Reactive Responsive Design, is that we're going to try to make this reactive, okay? To do that, we're going to use, take a look at a function on window called match media. That match media function is going to give you an object that has an add listener function with a callback. And then we can, with that, we can start using RxJS with that callback to turn this match media, which is going to match your media queries, into something reactive with RxJS. So what we're going to do is we want to track the screen size in an observable. Then we want to subscribe to that observable and just detect the screen sizes throughout our app. So we're going to ditch writing media queries in CSS, and we're instead going to subscribe to observables and do something with that. So I've made a library to handle this. I'll show you guys what this library looks internally. And there's going to be another version of this coming out soon. I'm working on making it a little easier to use, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. So it's a very short piece of code. You see 42 lines for this RxRs service. Basically what it does is you pass in, for the observed function, a query. This is a media query. And then it's going to call that match media function that I mentioned with that query. That's going to give us this MQL object. And then we're going to, there's some optimizations here so that if you pass in a media query, I'm going to cache that you've requested that media query so that you know to return the same thing that you've subscribed to previously, so we don't bloat how many things we're watching. Anyways, what happens is for the add listener, we give it this callback that is going to manage these subjects. And basically what's going to happen is a value true is going to get thrown on there when the media query is met, and false is going to be thrown on there when a media query is no longer met. Yeah, so fairly straightforward. And I'm going to show you how easy this is to use. We're going to grab a new tab here. We're going to go to applets. I'm just going to grab a new Angular project. Okay, we're in here. I don't know how familiar everyone is with applets, but I'm just going to type RxRs here and install that. In my component, I'm going to constructor, import RxRs. And then in the constructor, I'm going to say, we're just going to do this up. And then we're going to say this dot RxRs observe. And we're going to hand it a media query. Let me just grab one. This one looks reasonable. Yeah. So we'll put in quotes, this is a string. So there's our media query. And we're going to just subscribe to this. So okay, so I just coded that up real quick. We're going to open this in a new window, make it a little easier to handle. I hit F12, we see our query matched was false initially. When I hit F12, it's true because it pushed it into that query size. That's false again. True, false. So we see pretty easily we can throw together and see if RxRs is working. We are reactively watching for the screen size changes. So that's pretty cool. Now, something that I do next is I make some kind of service. I name the size service here. What I have in this app I'm going to show is called window size service. This is one of those things that's coming, I'm adding into the RxRs library as the option to use a service with these default breakpoints so that you have an easy place to start, as well as a Angular friendly version. So this is what that service looks like right now. There's some typing stuff at the top for ease of use. Track the sizes I want to break on. This is the object that I'm going to track the sizes with. So I'm going to track the sizes two ways. One is I'm going to have an object with all the sizes that we're watching, and one value will be true. The rest will be false, just depending on what size you're at. And then another observable that just says which size you are, extra small, small, medium, large, or extra large. They're useful in different cases. The service has a couple things going on. One is I separately have something that watches for the mobile size. This is handy because like right now, it's just a screen with extra small is going to equate to a mobile state, but maybe you want to do it only when screen size is extra small and the screen is in portrait mode. Then maybe you want the mobile state. If it's in landscape mode and it's small, maybe you want to have it show the tablet state. So it's an easy way to change where you recognize a mobile or tablet state or whatever is for your app. Screen sizes get a lot bigger and you start deciding to change those values, you can easily without going and reworking your entire app. And then to handle this object, we're going to call that observe function. I have to use zone for this one right now, but like I said, I'm coming out with easier way to use this with Angular soon. But this is basically, okay, we're going to pass in that observe function, and it's going to watch for these sizes. So once we have this service set up, we can start getting into what we're doing to solve the issues we have with media queries. So the first thing is you decide where your code is. So to illustrate this, I'm going to jump in here. We're going to look at one of these components, maybe this one. This works. So you see this class here. If I jump over to my TypeScript, you see I'm grabbing the current size off of my window size service that we just looked at right here. And so the current size, it's just saying large, extra small, whatever screen size you're sitting on. And it's going to, we have the class spacer here, and then we just use templating to say spacer dash, and then this will be small, or it'll be extra small, or large, or extra large, just depending on the size. Oh, I just know that I'm going to start my app ahead of time. I'm going to start it real quick. So this demo I'm going to show you is it's available on my GitHub. It's called RxRs demo. So mgm87/RxRs demo will get you to that if you want to mess around with it. Okay, so talking back on this, so we're using templating to dynamically set this class. If we look at the CSS, rather than all that media query stuff we were getting before, like this, our CSS now looks like this. So we have title, and then we have these classes which are set dynamically in the template. So that way, you are no longer putting a whole bunch of media query code in your CSS, which reduces how much code you have to have in your CSS, which is always nice. But it also lets you group the code that is applied at different screen sizes. So it's a lot more succinct. So if you can imagine being like, oh, there's an issue with the title, you come in here and you see your titles are, your classes are all right here, all sort of namespaced. So that handles the where do you store media queries question. Next is you decide an app's breakpoints. Well, we kind of looked at this a moment ago in the service. Oops, I minimized my VS Code. In the screen size service, again, with the new version of RxRs, maybe that code is just in that library, but you know that these are your breakpoints. Like you know that extra small is anything under 600 pixels. You know that small is between 600 and 1024 pixels. Medium, and so on. So your breakpoints are all codified, which means that everyone is going to be using those same breakpoints without any additional oversight in pull requests and such. Next, you can account for complex layouts. So this is where I wanted to get the app running so I could show you. This complex layout question has to do with that screen width thing. Like with media queries, typically you can only query the full screen width. So what if you have a screen like this? So if I hit F12, so it's easy to adjust the width of the screen. So we have a large screen here. We can see we have this big component that we don't want on mobile. We have these cards in a grid. We have filters that can pop out over here, and you see how they're squeezing that content. As we make the screen narrower, we're actually going to change how we have these cards. So now they're all stuck back to here. So we still have the cards in this layout similar to when we're on the large desktop. When I hit open filters, it's going to squeeze it, but it's going to change them into the stacked layout because there's not enough room. It squeezes the cards too much at that point if someone is at the screen size. Similarly, if I come down smaller, you'll see the menu will disappear. So we come to here, we have a full size layout. We open this menu, it'll switch back. So if you have a need for something like this, media queries alone is not going to cut it, and you're going to end up with kind of a weird hodgepodge of how you hide things and show things and whatnot. Then you'll also notice as I get smaller that this component disappears. And if we look at, so here's the big one. It actually is not even on the screen. So if you're on a phone, that isn't even going to show up. It's only when you get to a larger size screen that you're going to see that app there, where with a standard media query, it would just be hidden. You'd still see it there, but it would have a style on it. So if you have a need for a complex layout where things have to redraw, you're kind of out of luck with media queries without doing something kind of drastic. So let's look at what this code looks like for how to handle that. What I do is I like to make an object. I think it's this component. Yeah, so if you look here, I have this object called view state. So my view is going to be determined off of what I compute in this view state. And again, you don't have to do something like this for something simple. Like you saw in this component, the title bar component, we were just like dynamically setting these classes, right? But for something more complex, you're going to want something a little more fleshed out, and that's what you get here. So we have the window side service here. We have is mobile state. We have is the side nav open. We have the filter panel. So because Angular runs on observables, and now that you are watching for your screen sizes and observables, it makes it very easy to combine all that into what you want to see in your view. And that's what was missing using media queries, is that media queries is this like whole other system that's handled completely differently. Well, now we've brought it into what Angular is already doing and what you're already doing with your state and everything else. So now we can look in here and you can see like if the size is extra small or it's small and the side nav is open. This is what I'm going to do for my CSS grid. Card 1 is going to be 2 columns, 1 row, 2 columns, 1 row. So this is like that small view. We're going to say the filter class is going to be extra small, and is mobile is true. If we look at this one, if it's small or the side nav is not open and the filters are open, we're going to do something. So I kind of threw in here a bunch of different cases for how this UI can draw. You can see under these different cases, we have different layouts for our CSS grid. If I look at the dashboard component, like for the CSS grid, so I'm using material. So here's a mat grid tile. Here's a mat grid list. Well, it takes this col span and row span. Well, those are just going to be computed in my view state here. And so I don't have to try to figure out what's going on in here or anything like that. I've already taken care of it all in my TypeScript where we can test it. So we have col span here, and if I just search for view state, we can see kind of different places I'm using it. So here, I've got NGF on some things, dependent on what size the view is. I have things, here's that component we don't want to show in mobile. I just check if it's mobile and NGF that. Here, like I said, the col spans and row span. And then down here, another dynamic class. So this like simplifies a lot what this could have looked like if you were trying to work with media queries in your CSS and then trying to sort out how to handle what the view's supposed to look like along with that. It turns into quite a mess if you're not careful. So you can account for complex layouts. We just looked at the components only load when needed. And I sort of mentioned this, but you can test your layouts. Like, yes, this isn't going to get you, this is exactly what the screen looks like by testing this view to return, this view state object. But it is a lot better than not being able to test anything unless you go render it for an intent test. So at least with this, you can be like, okay, if I'm using, CSS grid, I can be like, oh, okay, yes, if these things are true, then I'm going to end up with cards that cover these many columns, these many rows. So this is something you can test against, which is really exciting to me because I like testing the security that it gives. So another nice thing about RxRs is I've been focusing a lot on widths, but if you're concerned about portrait and landscape, you can watch that. If you want to know if someone has set their browser to dark mode, that's also a media query. Like you can tap into a lot of the media query functionality that is there. So this is about the end of where I was going to present. I'm going to check for some questions.
We got a couple questions by Steven Nielsen near the bottom of the list.
Yeah. So I haven't tested through all media queries. I believe that Match Media, the window Match Media, works with all media queries, but I haven't gone through and tried to, like print, I haven't tested out print.
I've used your tool, Michael, to do orientation.
Mm-hmm.
If that's helpful to people like portrait or landscape. I've expanded his tool to do that for myself before.
Yeah, so I haven't gone through and double checked all of these, but portrait and landscape for sure, width for sure. But I expect that if it's in the media query spec and the media query that you're looking for is supported by the browser, window match media should handle it because it's what's handling those media queries anyway. So print media queries should work. But again, I haven't tried it. Of course, it might not be too hard to try if we, well, I haven't messed around with print enough. But you might even be able to figure that out just in like StackBlitz, similar to the demo that I just showed. Another question. Yeah. Okay. Another question. How performant is media query event listener? It's been a while, but I once had an issue years ago with having too many event listeners on the window resize event. I'd wonder if I'd have thousands of event listeners listen to media query if things would break down. So if you had thousands of things listening to it, it might break down. I don't think it would break down because this is different than the window resize event. So you're not actually, it's a little different. So if you put like a ton of callbacks on something, it would present an issue. But because of how, if you use the RxRs library, I'll pull this up again so you can see. So I have this object called window size subjects, and this is an object. And so the key for this object is actually, if you look here, it is the media query that you've passed in. Okay, so it doesn't matter how many times you want to listen to that thing, it's just an observable at that point. So even if you didn't want to have like a window size service, you wanted to just use RxRs and pass in media queries all the time, that would be totally fine. You won't really get a bloat in how many listeners there are. It's just a subscription on an observable. Okay. Yeah, snapshot testing is definitely helpful with this. It gets it depends on how you test your observables. Like if you're doing marble testing, like snapshot testing and marble testing, I wish they worked a little better together, but it just depends. But because it's an observable, it changes. Snapshots, not always helpful, but you could just, have a subscription in there that'll set a concrete value, and then you could snapshot against that. That might be a good shortcut if you didn't want to go the marble route. Yeah, looks like that's all the questions. Let me see. Yep, there's an inside.
Nice.
So that's RxRs. I hope you guys all try it out. Like I said, there's going to be a new, more fleshed out version coming out soon. Right now, it is just that RxRs library, so you kind of have to manage the service yourself. You can look at that RxRs demo repo on my GitHub, MGM87, if you want an example. Otherwise, you can just, I'll have a new version coming out soon that hopefully includes, so I'm waiting for a library to update to do the Angular version, but I'll come out with like an Angular friendly like service for it as well. So anyone using Angular doesn't have to worry about, like, if you look at my example, I had to do some zone stuff and in here to properly get the value, the new values to reflect in the UI. So it's pretty fun to mess around with because it's kind of magic to see happen once you get going on it. So I'd encourage people to test it out because this really makes complex layouts a breeze compared to what they used to be. And even if you're not doing complex layouts, just not having to write media queries in your CSS and handling it with all of your data, it's a big deal, especially when you have layouts being defined by data. Like you're already defining layouts by data, why not define layouts with your screen size the same way? So anyway, that's RxRs. That's my talk. So I guess we can.
I use RxRs. I'm an RxR. RxR.
RxR.
It's awesome. And I really feel like this is pretty game changing. I also got to say, not a lot of people are like innovating in the observables CSS space. A lot of people probably don't even know that exists. So yeah, I'd love to see more of this. I'm definitely a follower, Michael.
Nice.
So now we get to the fun prize winning part, but first you got to earn it. So I'm going to share my screen again. There it is. All right, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Excellent. So again, we have 3 prizes. The top 3 scorers will win those prizes. Present. Never used this tool before, but it's pretty cool. Player versus player. Classic, I think.
Yes.
All right. So now each of you go to www.kahoot.it, or you can use the app if you got it. And then you just put in this number and you can get going. And as you do, your names will start to pop up here. Please, I beg you, be responsible with the name you choose. If it's not your name, then I might not know who to assign the prize to be honest.
That's a good point. Lots of people like to put in funny names, but we won't know who to give the prize to.
Yeah,
Eric just gets it.
you're gonna have, yeah, that'd be great. I'd love all 3, to be honest.
It's like they never gave away prizes before you were an organizer.
I know, right? It feels a little unfair. I like, it's so loud. Wow. Yeah. I sort of just want to like go and not be an organizer next time. Just like, I'll go as incognito. All right. I'll give it another.
Okay. Well, we have 12 attendees. We got 10 players right now.
Oh, really? We're down to 12? All right. Get some people opted out. Let's go.
Hey, as a side note there, if anybody else is interested in getting a free workshop, if you volunteer to be a moderator for the workshops, you can get a free ticket to NG Comp Enterprise, and you can get another workshop of your choice. All of that free. All you have to do is just help moderate one of the workshops. So if anybody's interested, slap your name down over in the chat, and I would love to have you help, and then you get all of that stuff for free. So there you
That's
go,
a
Eric.
sweet
Yeah,
deal.
do it. Yeah.
3 seconds.
I thought I'd just get it for free. You know, I wouldn't have to work for it. Oh, looks like we're done with this part. Next.
Timer counts down.
Oh, it gives a score after everything.
Yeah.
That's cool. So you just have to be a moderator, huh?
Yeah, that's it. And pretty much you get to just watch the whole workshop. It really doesn't require a whole lot of work. You just make sure that people are behaving themselves in the chat channel, and
Yeah.
basically it. So really cool stuff.
Good results
awesome.
on that one.
I'm interested. I'll probably be contacting you pretty soon.
Yeah, for sure.
Number 3 of 10. You only got 20 seconds. You better hurry.
Your scores improve the quicker you answer too, as long as you answer correctly.
Oh yeah, faster. Yeah, because if y'all get the same score, the fastest guy gets the prize, right? Or girl. Sorry. Next. We're gonna hurry through this.
The
Selectors.
What are those?
I'm gonna make you read for this one.
How are you supposed to answer fast when you do that?
Well, I gave you 10 extra seconds. And Michael, you're not supposed to be playing anyway.
I'm not playing. I'm playing with this pointer stick.
Are you pointing at the correct answer right now?
Now I am.
Don't let them cheat. Oh. Whoa, this is pretty
Standings
close.
have changed a lot. Man,
This is fancy, dude.
D was on top of the world at first, but mighty have fallen.
Wow, look how fast everybody's doing this. Oh,
Nice.
all right, all right.
Oh boy,
Josh is pulling ahead.
things are getting heated, guys. Oh, what does RxRs stand for? Pharmacy responses. That's funny.
When I first heard of RxJS, I'm like, is that like a pharmacy app?
That's funny.
Yeah. I felt pretty dumb when I said that out loud.
Some of the pharmacies. Oh man.
I bet a lot of people.
What's everyone say? Everyone say.
Ah,
Oh,
I was right.
yeah.
Almost
That's a tricky
50%.
one.
I'm tricky.
Yep. RxRs is designed to be used by anyone.
What it's inspired by Angular, right? The CDK.
Yeah, it's inspired by CDK breakpoint observer is what they call it.
Ah, very cool. Very cool. Five, four, three, two, one. You're out of time.
All right, what is it?
Oh,
Josh.
Josh maintained his lead with NGRX second. Oh, in fact, wait.
Oh,
There's
there's one more.
Oh.
Oh man.
This quiz never ends. I'm pretty proud of these questions, to be honest. Ooh, very nice, very nice.
Yeah, that's a tricky one.
All right, now we get to find out who's third. It's not, Josh isn't first.
Whoa, D came back. Look at that.
Oh my gosh, who is this? I have no idea. Steven Nielsen. Awesome. Way to go, guys. All right. Cool.
So, are you gonna take care of, or is who's taking care of making sure those people get their stuff?
Oh, it's gonna show me again. I don't want to see that. Okay. So who's D? Because I don't know who that is. You can throw
Probably
it.
double.
Is that double?
It's double. Yep, it's
Okay.
double.
So double. So Josh, you earned a 1 month free Thinkster Pro membership, and I will send that to you. Throw your guys' email addresses into. Oh well, no, direct message them to me. You can direct message them to me either. Well, using this chat feature, you can specify it. That way, you don't have to share with everybody.
Okay, but to be specific on that, to get the Thinkster membership, give us the email address that you use on GitHub. So that we can create your user account there. We'll have to probably email back and forth, but I promise, give us your email that you use on GitHub, and then we can help you create a Thinkster account. And then from there, we'll upgrade the account to Pro.
I cannot find my chat to save my life. So the winners, Stephen Double, you're going to win the Wallaby JS and Quokka licenses, which are going to supercharge your testing. It's a super great tool. I'd love it. I haven't subscribed yet, but I might. And Steven Nielsen, you won that amazing workshop from NGConf Enterprise, which is like so. It's so cool. They haven't even announced it yet, so that's going to be really cool. I don't know if that's it's also worth $500, which is even cooler.
It's
So-
November. Let's see. It's going to be November 17 and 18.
Online, right?
Yeah, all online.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And then seriously, if anybody else wants to help be a moderator for either November 16, 17, or 18, if you just, get that day off, some of them are just half day. Others are 1, some are 2 days. But if you want to help with that, we'll give you a free NG Enterprise ticket. So that's November 19 and 20. And then you'd also get a second free workshop. That's a lot. That's a lot. So let me know and we'll hook you up.
All right. Thank you so much, Brooke and
Yeah.
Michael, and all of you attendees who came. This has been fantastic. Got your email addresses, and I will send out prizes afterwards. Thanks, everybody, and please come again next month.
Yeah, come again next month. There's a couple people saying that they'll have additional questions. Go ahead and just put those up on our Twitters.
Yep. Or you can
we're gonna
use
have to
the
get off
Meetup.
now. So.
You can use the Meetup.
Oh,
note
yeah,
too.
Meetup messaging is fine, or on Twitter. Either of those will work.
Cool. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Thanks.
Cool. So Eric, do you want to just email me those addresses?
Yes, I'll email you, and then also the other one I will do. Will you? You're not taking care of that, are you? Or you
Okay,
can?
fine.
The Wallaby one?
No, not that one. Nope, just thanks
I'll take care of that one.
Okay.
Cool. I'll send those to you right after this.
Okay. And then if you really do want to help, just let me know. For sure we can get you hooked up there.
Yeah, I would love to.
Okay. Yeah,
So,
that's fun.
I'll send you some deets afterwards.
Okay, sounds good. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Okay, see ya.